Okay, good morning.
Matt, I would wait. Let's just see how many people are on there.
How do I even know who's on here?
I'll go on YouTube. Let me just check. Usually we wait a couple minutes, like a minute or two.
Okay, that's completely fine.
Let's see if we can just wait another minute, and then
Yep.
we'll start. Give some latecomers.
We have one person named Randomizer that's joined. Hello. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes here. Oh, we've got some more people that have joined us. We'll get started in a couple minutes here. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. Cool.
Okay, why don't we start? There's 66 people now.
Okay, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to whoever's on the call. I'm Neeraj, and we've got Pavel as well here on the call. And I'm out here in Vancouver, British Columbia, 6 o'clock in the morning, but very happy to join the call and talk about what we're going to be doing. We have a presentation here, but we'll also be fielding questions, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. So, yeah, hey, Pavel.
Hey, everybody. Joining here, as we said, you guys got my notes from yesterday, and this is going to be Neeraj's first official community call to start the new year and really kick off his vision for decentralized science and what we're doing for the next couple months.
Yeah, thanks, Pavel. So for everyone on the call, we're going to be walking through our presentation here, which is a series of slides. And what we'll do is I'll walk through each slide. This will be basically my presentation. And at the end of every slide, I'll just give a few moments for the community to ask any questions that they have so that we can keep everything contextual, and then we'll continue. So yes, let's move on. So we're going to first talk about development that we've been doing since the start of the year. Okay, so let's go into what's been done. So just to start high level, we're going to be talking, first of all, about the infrastructure, because the infrastructure really is critical for decentralized science. We will be getting to decentralized science, but it's the infrastructure is required for it to to work. It's an enabler. So the new nodes that went down prior to the new year in the mainnet, we brought them up. So we have replaced them. We've also been adding a lot of redundancies to ensure that those sorts of things don't happen. This is really critical to ensure the uptime for the network. So we've been adding utilities, tests, especially to ensure that the client-centric nodes are up. Those client-centric nodes are pretty critical for our explorers and to enable applications to be built. They're basically public-facing blockchain nodes. We've also updated our log files. Some of this is very technical in nature, but I'm going to go into it anyways for the technical people on the call. So we have a lot of log files. They're really good for diagnostic purposes. We keep them on our blockchain nodes, obviously, but they take a lot of space. And one of the issues we ran into was the log files had just grown very large. It's interesting because our blockchain now is close to running several years now. And what's happened is the log files have grown really large. That's what happens when you have a blockchain that's running for a while. So it's kind of a nice problem to have. We brought up b.client.sentry. It's one of the important nodes, so that was brought up. And we have a snapshot server, and the snapshot server basically allows people to bring new nodes up. So instead of downloading the entire blockchain, which can take quite a while, if some of you have ever run a node on Ethereum or Bitcoin, even on Bluzelle now, it takes quite a while. So with a snapshot server, you can bring your nodes up pretty quickly. So it's another thing to allow the network to grow. One of the big things, and this is kind of tied to some people that are asking other questions about the bridge and osmosis and all that stuff, something that's really vital is Cosmos. So the team has been very busy for the past 6 months plus updating our blockchain to the latest Cosmos. So you'll see in our slide here that we're moving to Cosmos 0.47.15. That is the latest version of 0.47. It is important to do this, and the primary reason is this is necessary so that we can reinstate the bridge. There were some critical security updates that happened with the older version of Cosmos that required an upgrade, and that's effectively what the team is working on. The upgrade is substantial. There's a lot of updates to be done there internally with our own code, which I won't go into here, but that's a key thing. And we also, just from an efficiency standpoint for the organization, we've been cleaning up a lot of our unused resources on AWS. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, this is what we're presently doing. So we're finishing up the process of bringing up nodes that were left over on the mainnet. So the nodes that are not running yet on the mainnet are primary or explorers. There are some other nodes that are not public facing. We have things like gateway nodes and private nodes that the public does not get access to. They're more for internal purposes, but we have explorers like PingPub and Big Dipper that went down as part of what happened prior to the new year. So we're bringing those up. We're also doing, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we're doing heavy work on the upgrades. So we have to do code reviews every time we do this. We can't just deploy things willy-nilly. So there's a lot of testing required in order to make sure that the new Cosmos version is running properly. So, we do tests in Curium, which is our Go line code, and our infrastructure, which manages all our AWS nodes across the world. As part of our kind of proactive process of hardening the code to make sure none of the downtime ever occurs again, or at least, minimize it, we've been implementing health checks. So those health checks actually proactively go out and check to make sure the nodes are running properly. And they also ensure that we're aware of events on AWS. We've been fixing issues with state sync, which is the process of bringing up a new node. And one of the important things that is on the last item here is making sure that when AWS actually plans to do any sort of internal maintenance or upgrades, we actually get notified about that ahead of time. That was actually a key issue that we ran into in December, was Amazon events that we had not been tracking that were basically restarting our nodes. And that's precisely why we lost some nodes prior to the new year. But the good news is we have a lot of redundancy, right? We have several nodes running at all times, and this is kind of the nature of blockchain. The network kept running without a problem, so that's great. That was a great kind of demonstration of our redundancy. But at the same time, we aim to maintain that redundancy, and that's kind of why we've been spending all this time bringing our nodes back up and adding additional redundancy. So, it's important to understand why the team is spending this much time on the upgrade infrastructure, and why some things that the community is interested in knowing more about, like the bridge or decentralized science. Why are we not working on that right now? Well, it's because the infrastructure is critical, right? The infrastructure has to be running. It's what powers everything, and it has to be running without a fail. So far we have a 100% track record. Our chain's been running perfectly, touch wood, and we aim to keep it that way. All right, so let's see here now. I got some questions that I'm going to look at. gaming with
And
this.
I would just answer the ones that are relevant to the slide.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones we can wait till the end. Otherwise, it's just going to be all over the place.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. I might need someone to put those questions at the end, but that's fine. Let me just see what's relevant here. Yeah, a lot of good DeSci questions, which I hope we can go get back to in a moment. When is staking working again? I'm not entirely certain what that question means. I think it's revolving around rewards, but staking itself, just to be clear, because I have seen that question, staking in itself works all the time. It's not something that gets turned off and on. So anybody's free to go and use Kepler or whatever blockchain tools they want to stake tokens and unstake tokens. In terms of rewards, we're still paying the rewards. There has been some issues with reliability with the nodes, but there's the node payments or reward payments. But in terms of paying out the staking rewards, that's still active. How does Bluzelle plan to leverage the recent developments to strengthen its position in DeSci? We'll get to that. Any notable events? Some question how will Bluzelle's infrastructure actually help researchers who are struggling with current funding modes? Well, that's a DeSci question. Okay, so we got a lot of great DeSci questions, so we'll move on to the next slide now. We'll talk about those later. What's to do? So it's a bit of a continuation of what we are just talking about, right? You're getting the theme here that we're really focused right now on the infrastructure before we can move on to decentralized science. So improving the infrastructure we have to track the events going on so that we basically can prevent nodes from going down ahead of time. Can't emphasize this enough, the software upgrade, right? So all this infrastructure stuff is ultimately leading up to an upgrade to 04715, which is a version of Cosmos. That is critical. And we've actually just, the version that I'm talking about out in late 2024. We will now be testing that internally on our mainnet, and that's the plan, that we're going to upgrade over to that, to the mainnet. And we have confirmed with our partners that run our bridge. So we run a bridge and we have other partners that run the bridge. We have confirmed with them that 04715 will allow us to connect the bridge up, and we will have our osmosis link back up once that's ready. So that is something that is planned, and that is really a big part of what we're doing here. So again, refactoring infrastructure code, that's part of this. Adding robustness tests, these are just more tests that we're running across the board. It's really important to make sure that we don't run into the issues we run into in the past, and we definitely don't want new problems when we upgrade. Health checks for the explorers. Currently, we don't have any health checks for explorers. They never really were high priority because they're not critical in the sense that they don't run the blockchain. They're auxiliary. They allow the community to go in and look at what's going on in the blockchain. They're not the blockchain. But nevertheless, they can go down, they can be vulnerable, and they don't have the level of redundancy that we'd like to have. So we're adding health checks for them. And, SSL certificates, unfortunately, they expire every year. And even though we have our SSL certificates renewed all the way for several years, we do have to keep updating them. So that's something that we're doing. All of them are really coming up for renewal. So let's see here. More decentralized science. When will the bridge be done? Steven asks. The bridge is going to be done as soon as we get our upgrade done. So our high-level plan, I don't have all these steps here, but the high-level plan, we're putting in all the infrastructure improvements that we need to have. We're testing. We have team members that are basically focused on testing the upgrade to Cosmos. There were several things that needed to be done other than the upgrade, but the upgrade required auxiliary libraries that we had to be updated. So there's a lot of stuff that we're not talking about that had to be done in order to support the upgrade. Once the upgrade's done, we're going to bring up a testnet bridge, and that's going to allow us to connect to other networks, use it over the testnet. Once that's done, we're going to basically put out a proposal like we did in the past to upgrade the mainnet. And once the mainnet is upgraded to 04715, we're going to bring up our bridge. We've already got our partners in place to do that. It's just a matter of doing the upgrade. Let's see here. When will the bridge be done? Can you share some more about DeSci? Any surprises? What are the most exciting DeSci? Okay, so lots of great DeSci questions. Let's continue to the next slide. Another thing I want to address, though, that has come up is about the bridge. So some people have wondered, well, why was the bridge taken down? Just to clarify, it wasn't, at least not by us. As I mentioned earlier, the bridge was running. The reason it stopped working was simply because we had to upgrade, right? Everyone has had to upgrade. We've had to upgrade. One of the kind of weak links that we had on our side, I suppose, was that we hadn't been upgrading Cosmos as frequently as some other projects. As a result of that, the upgrade we're doing to 04715 is a rather large leap. One of the things we will be doing going forward is we will be making smaller upgrades at a time. So we're going to be basically doing them much more frequently. So, for example, every couple of months or so, I can't promise it'll be every couple of months, might be less, might be more. We're going to be doing upgrades. And the reason for that is that we're just going to keep up to date with the latest Cosmos, and we'll avoid kind of a 6-month cycle or more where we have to kind of upgrade and it takes this much time. We don't want that to happen again. But the bridge basically became obsolete as a result of that. Okay, so let's see. Pavel, you're posting some questions here too, right? Let's see. Okay.
I haven't posted any questions.
Okay.
I've just been logging some of the questions for later.
Gotcha. Good. That's what I was wondering. Okay, so let's, so this slide here, infrastructure is needed for DeSci to become possible. So that's the reason we're working on this. DeSci is our plan. We want to make sure we absolutely have our infrastructure in place solidly. It's got all the checks in place to make sure that we can focus on it, right? One of the interesting things about the DeSci aspect is it's going to be more or less one of the first key applications we're running on here. I mean, we obviously were working on NFT stuff. We worked on our database several years ago. But DeSci really is an application running on top of our blockchain. So from that standpoint, it's really important to understand the blockchain itself has to be running smoothly, right? DeSci is going to take advantage of a lot of the great stuff that we've been building up with Bluzelle, but it requires the blockchain to run properly. So we really are trying to complete the first step, which is a requirement for DeSci. And there are some things related to the DeSci, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. That's what we're moving into, that need to be added to the infrastructure for DeSci to really work. There's some really key components in the infrastructure. So we're going to get to that in a moment. Okay, so Pavel, there's a question here from Monica that maybe, do you want to address that right now?
No, that's a later one. I don't want to.
Okay.
That's just a general Q&A.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Decentralized storage network. Yeah, so I'll be answering questions like Pavel's saying contextually. So great questions. If I'm not answering it right now or Pavel's not, it's only because we're going to save it later for Q&A. For now, I'll just be answering questions related to the slides we're on. So decentralized storage network. We have a storage network already. It's been running for quite a while, running on IPFS, but running on our nodes. It gives us global distribution and redundancy. Some of you might be familiar with IPFS. That's basically what it does. This is actually baked into our protocol, into our Bluzelle Curium code, the use of IPFS. And as you probably know, because we're actually auto-pinning all the files on our nodes, every node, not just our validators, even our sentries, it provides the data integrity and availability required. This is important if you go back to decentralized science. Why? Well, we need to be able to ensure that all the scientific information, all the research, our clinical records, all the patents, everything related to decentralized science, everything that we put out in our public announcement about decentralized science, all that stuff can actually be assured as available at all times on our storage network. That's key. Let's see. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Authenticity through the blockchain technology. So some of this is probably obvious to blockchain people, but because we have blocks in our chain, they're all linked together. We got transaction hashes. So, you discover something, you put some sort of clinical records, whatever, into our blockchain as part of DeSci. It's now linked together. You got hashes. There's really no way to forge any information or to deny it or to try to steal any other person's information. Immutable proof of data existence, kind of tied to what I just said. But the point being, let's say me and Pavel are both doing research on something in longevity and I discover something important. I can publish it It's in a block. It's got a timestamp on it. Pavel can't come along tomorrow, take my information, claim it's his. It's there. There's a proof of that existing. And data authenticity. It cannot be changed. There's a hash around everything. You change even one bit in the data stored, it changes the hash. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Next slide, please. Support for storage providers. So storage providers, who are they? They're nodes that are running on our network. They're providing storage. They're not to be confused with validators. So our storage provider may not even be a validator. They may just have a node running that doesn't have any voting power in Tendermint, but they provide storage specifically for the purposes of our storage services. So one of the important things that we need to add right now is financial incentives. This is one of the things as part of the infrastructure necessary for DeSci, is adding financial incentives in the form of rewards so that these providers actually are incentivized to do what they want, they're doing. Proof of storage is important. I'm not going to go into the details of the algorithm for it, but the point being, we need to prevent abuse. We don't want people, faking that they have storage when they don't and getting rewarded for it. That's really important. Obviously, it could become open season if that was not there. And staking. We're going to get into that in a moment, but it's not to be confused with validator staking. This is something where it's parallel with validator staking, but the idea here is if somebody has storage and you actually believe in them, just like you trust a validator, you can stake the storage provider. And as a result, you can share in the revenue that storage provider is providing. Next slide, please. Okay, support for storage customers. So who's a storage customer? Well, that's someone using it. That's the client, right? So in this case, actually, Decentralized Science users would be an example of storage customers. They're actually using our service here. So lease and lease management and auto eviction. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we need to add a more robust model to ensure that when data is being stored on the network, there's some sort of economic lease model around it, right? So just like renting space somewhere or renting a home or something, there needs to be a means where you can store data for a certain amount of time, and there's costs involved, right? The costs have a certain cost function, which we'll get into in the next bullet point. And if you don't pay for it, it gets evicted, right? Simple economics. The economies of time that I'm talking about here, that's the algorithm. So the idea here being that, if you store things for longer periods of time, the cost per, say, month or block goes down. That's something we're implementing. So we want to have an algorithm there that makes really good sense for our users. Okay, next question, next slide. Upgrade to Cosmos 04715, kind of talked about it already, but we need to integrate. So IBC is actually a big part of the technology that allows us to even run a bridge. So again, for the people that asked us about the bridge to Osmosis, it's about IBC reintegration. IBC had issues, and that was precisely why the upgrade was necessary. So we're reintegrating IBC, and that's going to allow us to reinstate the Osmosis bridge and have the subsequent liquidity on Osmosis. One of the other things we plan to do is to step in and help out with liquidity on Osmosis. I'm not going to go into too much specifics on that, but that's the plan once that bridge is up and running. That's really going to help the community out with moving tokens that I know a lot of people have back to Osmosis, and then they can, trade them for whatever other tokens they want. That's basically your onboarding, offboarding ramp. Next slide, please. I really like the questions.
That's all.
Yeah, I really like the questions I'm seeing here. A lot of great questions related to science, so I'm really looking forward to getting into it. Yeah. So, Pavel, how do we?
Well, we've covered everything. I think you might just want to let people who just came on or don't know what IBC is, because sometimes people aren't fully aware. They're following different aspects, but not the core tech. So, use an abbreviation that they might not be familiar.
About IBC. So IBC stands for Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. It's the standard protocol that allows blockchains to talk to each other. So, one of the great things that we love about Cosmos, which is why we got into it in the first place several years ago, was the fact that IBC was kind of baked in a way, right? It is a protocol, kind of part of Cosmos community, but it allows an internet of blockchains. So even though we have our kind of siloed environment, which is the Bluzelle chain and our token and everything around it, and we have our own distinct blocks. With IBC, we can bridge our network to other chains, and we can move our token back and forth. So, for example, people know that on Osmosis, the Bluzelle token exists. That's basically our token. It's the exact same token, and you can move tokens back and forth. So, IBC is what basically is the magic sauce. It's what allows us to talk to other chains, and we're not limited to just Osmosis. By the way, one of the reasons it's really important for us to get IBC back up and running is to not just connect with Osmosis, but any other chains. We're planning to do partnerships with other blockchains that are providing interesting services, and we want to be able to interoperate with them, right? So have our token possibly running on their chain, theirs on ours. There's a lot of open opportunities there. So IBC is really, really vital, which is why this upgrade that I mentioned is a big deal, right? We're spending a lot of time on this. People might be wondering why. That is why. Interoperability and decentralized science, if you think about it, it's all about interoperability. It's about cooperation. It's about enabling that. So you look at it infrastructurally, having the bridge up is not just about Osmosis. It's about having interoperability with any chain that we want to have interoperability with. Okay, let's see.
All right, let's get into the questions then.
Okay.
I think let's start with the more high level ones, and then you can go into the DeSci ones after.
Pavel, why don't you go ahead, since you've been kind of looking at the questions as I've been talking, and maybe you can sort of facilitate by reading out a question and I can answer it.
Well, I'll start with the general ones that turn to me, then more on the company, and then we can go into the specific ones.
Sure.
So one was, hey, as you step back from the CEO role, what's one lesson or principle you want Neeraj to carry forward as he enters this exciting new chapter? I would say is pay attention to the community as much as you can. Whether it's on Twitter or Telegram, work with our mods to always hear back of what people are saying. Like sometimes you can't be on there all the time, but work with them to get the notes and hear the feedback, and then get on there and answer the questions. That's probably one thing you want to do. And then question for me is, Pavel, as you transition from CEO, what has been your most fulfilling moment leading Bluzelle? I would say it's from 2019, 2020, when people who were around then, I mean, the crypto markets in August 2018 almost hit an extinction level event where ETH went under $100 from August to December 2018. All the projects that launched at the end of 2017, 2018 just got killed. People didn't know if we'd ever come back. 2019 was super painful. You have people on your team come, leave. People were getting frustrated. And not just our project, everybody. And the fact that, and then COVID hits, and then all the markets tank again, and all the alts do. To be able to come back from that in April 2020 at the lowest, and still be around 5 years later, go through another cycle and be with other projects, I think for me that was the most fulfilling, is that in 2020 we didn't die, where a lot of projects did, and easily we could have, and we came through.
Yeah, I'll add something to that too if you're done, Pavel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as some of you people know on this call, Bluzelle's been around for a long time. We celebrated our 10th anniversary in 2024. We started in 2014, and we've been around for a long time if you look at it from a blockchain community perspective. And we've been through several cycles of ups and downs. And yeah, I'm frankly just really proud of the fact that we're here, we're alive, we're running well. I know people sometimes get frustrated because their questions don't necessarily get answered in the time period they want. But we're here, and it's business as usual. Obviously, there's a transition here where I'm going to be taking on a lot more responsibilities. But Pavel's around, and he's going to be helping in a diminished role. But going back to 2020 and 2021, all that time, super proud about the fact that we persisted. Right, we survived through it all. A lot of the projects that were around prior to that time period are gone. We're still here, and we're forging ahead. We got a great use case with decentralized science, and this is something that's really dear to me. So I'm really excited about finishing up the infrastructure and getting the science technology stuff going ahead.
Okay, so let's get into the more specific questions. So, Neeraj, just for you, what inspired you to focus on DeSci, and was there personal experience that drove this decision?
Great question. So I'm a computer science mathematician guy. I've been kind of a science geek since I was 5 or 6 years old, to be very honest. I'm trying not to be cliched here. One of the biggest things for me personally that's always been on my mind, and it sort of will come across in future conversations, is just it's just kind of a fear of the unknown when it comes to things like aging and death. I've always kind of subscribed to this belief that's not entirely common, but there are people in the science community that aging is a disease. I felt that it's something that nobody's really looking at in the world, right? We're looking at research in so many different areas, right? Not just medicine, but other ones. But this is being neglected. So it's just been something. I have a close-knit family, many great family members that I'm close to. And, you know, I'd like to see a future where I can control that, or at least I can be in charge of making sure that the people that are important to me are around. And that's really what I truly believe in science. To me, that's the most important thing out there, and I want to be an enabler for that. So, yeah, this has been on my mind for years, and I'm really excited to be able to actually do something proactive about it.
Oh, right. So one question is, how do you plan to convince old school scientists who barely use Excel to switch to blockchain?
That barely use Excel. Okay,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The spreadsheets. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to scientists talking to scientists, right? I've been going to blockchain conferences for years. I mean, obviously, you go to a blockchain conference, you're meeting other blockchain people, but I'm not talking about going to blockchain conferences. I'm talking about meeting scientists, right, in their own comfortable space, talking about science. So, you know, in terms of longevity, which is the specific field in DeSci that I'm really interested in, and that's where I want to kind of get involved, although we're not necessarily limiting ourselves to that. One of the things that I want to do there is I actually want to meet those people. Like, I've been doing a lot of reading on my own time about the field of longevity and aging, and I'm actually in touch with, loosely speaking, I'm not like on a one-to-one basis, but loosely speaking, in touch with people in that community. And my intention really is to build up a network with those people in that field, where I can talk to them in terms of the science that they understand, and really kind of get them on our side, to get them to understand that this is the technology we have and this is going to solve problems. Because the problems that we're trying to solve in decentralized science are real problems, right? They're problems that exist in the science field. They've been around for a long time. It's actually stifling progress. And I want to basically present to them that, hey, you know what? I understand these problems, and we've got the solution here, right? That's really what it comes down to.
Okay. Here's another one, good one. How will Bluzelle's infrastructure actually help researchers who are struggling with current funding models?
That's a good question. Probably I'm not going to be able to give a sufficiently detailed answer to that here, but I'll try my best. So the idea here really is to provide an infrastructure where previously people were siloed, right? I mean, if you look at university structure, research structure, all that, it was kind of a who knows who kind of thing, almost maybe even an old boys network. We're really trying to break that centralization siloed model down. So anybody, even if they're not going to Stanford or Caltech or Waterloo, wherever university it is, if they're somewhere, you know, they're just doing research in their lab somewhere in the middle of India or wherever they are, they can go onto our platform. They can share their information. They can share their findings. They can share their research. They can have open Discord, and they can actually participate in the crypto ecosystem. And of course, it's a leap to assume that cryptocurrency is going to suddenly be funding all these things, but that is really our grand plan, right? Why are we even here? Why is anybody in crypto space? Because we believe that crypto is going to move the needle, and we're going to move into a better world where we're using this. So we really want to employ the decentralized technology, but also the DeFi technology, right? The DeFi technology to allow people to present their information and to be able to source that funding in a transparent way.
With that, here's a good question. What role does the BLZ token play in supporting our DeSci initiative?
Great question. Metaphorically, Bluzelle is basically the oil, the gasoline that drives our network, right? Literally, no pun intended. I mean, you guys have all used our blockchain. Well, gas powers everything, right? Every transaction that runs on our blockchain is going to be using the Bluzelle token. That is not ever going to change. You look at our Bluzelle chain right now, one of the things we're not changing is anything related to the token, what drives the network, any of that. So the short answer is Bluzelle powers the network, just like the US dollar currently is kind of the reserve currency for the world. In Bluzelle's environment, anything you do in DeSci right now on Bluzelle, or you will be doing, whether it's publishing findings or sharing cryptocurrency to fund a project that you're interested in that's hosted on Bluzelle, or perhaps providing a information NFT, because we have NFTs and we're actually going to be using them for decentralized science. You need to publish that NFT. Well, the gas required to publish it is going to be in Bluzelle. The price of perhaps funding that is going to be in Bluzelle. If you want to sell some sort of idea on Bluzelle in our marketplace, that's going to also be using the Bluzelle token.
Here's a good one. Hey, what's your top priority as you step into this new role? This is for Neeraj.
Say that again, please.
What is your top priority as you step into this new role?
My top priority is probably making sure that it's engaging the community, right? It's really, the earlier question about how are we going to engage the scientific community. I think that's something that we really need to focus on, is getting those people involved. I mean, I love the fact that we have some really excited, involved community members in the space of crypto, people that are invested in our token, that are involved in our community for a long time. But it's really important to bring those people in from the scientific community. And how we're going to do that is communication, right? Not only talking this way and having more regular communication, as Pavel alluded to earlier, but also bringing in another whole group of people into our community, which are those scientists, so they can really get a taste of this and start to get involved in this. So that, that's going to require people like me. I'm passionate about science. It's about going and meeting those people in whatever forums and getting them to come in and try stuff and really engaging them so that they're actually joining our community and they understand what we have here.
Okay, so we got 3 more minutes left.
Okay.
Here's one. One person is a PhD student struggling with research funding. He says, this all sounds promising but scary. Can you walk him through how a rookie like him, who's a PhD student, would be able to use Bluzelle and DeSci?
Well, I'd say it starts with just becoming familiarized with blockchain and understanding it. We don't want people getting into any sort of cryptocurrency and losing, whatever funds they may have they're involved in. So I would say first thing to do, and especially if you're already doing a PhD in science, you're probably pretty, I would say reasonably tech savvy, I'm assuming. Even if you're not, first thing to do, familiarize with the technology, ensure you understand it. Educate yourself on the blockchain. There's lots of information. I cannot tell you how much information there is online. There's also a lot of misleading information. So it's really important to go to the right sources. I'm not going to quote any right now, but that's something, we can be reached out for. And once that's there, really understand what are the problems we're trying to solve, right? I mean, it's really important to understand before you even get into this, what are we actually solving here? So figure out what solutions, what problems we're solving here, and then you'll see solutions. So I really like to take an approach of being really clear why we're even here. What is our technology for, right? We don't want to be a company that's just, building solutions looking for a problem, right? It's really the other way around. So it's, you're in PhD. I'm sure you have problems. Try to see what the alignment is between the problems that you're running into and what we can solve. I'm also very open to hearing from people such as this person on what are the problems that you have. What are your research? What are the problems you're running, for example, into funding? Like what do you need? This is really actually helpful to us. We don't want to be operating in a vacuum where we can just kind of figure out magically what are your problems. So definitely looking forward to hearing that feedback.
All right, last question, and this is the perfect one to end with. If we fast forward to 5 years from now, what does success look like for Bluzelle in the DeSci space?
Okay, well, that almost looks like what is my wish, my happy wish, the happy path. Well, what I'd like to see is 5 years from now, other than our bridge having been run for 5 years without any more downtime and all our nodes running, I'd like to see a few things. I'd like to see a much larger community of nodes participating in Bluzelle, which is what we're going to need. We need that infrastructure to be even larger than it is, because we need to be able to accommodate all the participants in our ecosystem, right? Those DeSci participants. I'd also like to see that we're basically the de facto place to go for decentralized science. Now, the prerequisite for that is decentralized science itself becomes an established, accepted thing, not in the blockchain community, but in the scientific community. So going back to our friend here, who's a PhD student, I'd like to see that 5 years from now, people in universities, people that are interested in fields like longevity or space research or whatever it is, telecom, whatever field it is, they know that, okay, these problems can be solved with decentralized technology, and Bluzelle is the leader in that technology. They come to our chain and we have a fantastic application stack available to them so that they could solve problems around, say, funding or collaboration with other teams so that they can solve those problems, or publishing their information. There's a wide berth of fields we can grow into that I can't get into in the scope of this call, but that, you know, I'd like for us to capture all that and really for us to be the go-to place for, you know, finding those solutions.
All right, that's 40 minutes is up. I think we're good. We noted down some of the other questions. We'll answer them in Telegram, or you can put them on there and some of our mods will note down and we can catch up on it there. It's really late for me here in Singapore. It's super early for Neeraj. Thanks for coming out to this on this first community call, and we'll follow up. And we had almost 400 people viewing at the same time, so this was really good. Thanks for everybody for coming out.
Thank you. We'll be talking to you all soon. Thank you.